If you found a bike on the side of the road, it's got wheels, it's got pedals, it's designed in a certain way, you would automatically assume that it's designed to move, right? Well, if you found a robot that looked exactly like a body, you would assume the same thing. You would assume, oh, well, that's crazy. That's got joints, it's got ligaments, it's got arms, it's got legs. Oh, it must be meant to sit and lay down all day. No, that thing's meant to move. The thing's meant to move. And so our bodies are so meant to move. And when do our bodies break down? When we stop moving. Hello and welcome. This is Brian Delaney with Unlock Potential, where we get together with top experts in their field who have simple, profound advice to help you and I live better lives, to be able to be more fit to serve the people around us and answer that question, the question that nags within all of us: how good can I be and how great can I make it for people around me? One of the things that I've learned how to do to manage myself emotionally, to just so that my body's not a distraction for the other work that I do. But it's really regulation, because my body, if you just found, it'd be like kind of walking along the road and finding a bike. If you found a bike on the side of the road, it's got wheels, it's got pedals, it's designed in a certain way, you would automatically assume that it's designed to move, right? Well, if you found a robot that looked exactly like a body, you would assume the same thing. You would assume, oh, well, that's crazy. That's got joints, it's got ligaments, it's got arms, it's got legs. Oh, it must be meant to sit and lay down all day. No, that thing's meant to move. The thing's meant to move. And so our bodies are so meant to move. And when do our bodies break down? When we stop moving, right? When we stop moving. But we stop moving and then we wonder why things don't work. We get injured and we stop moving that body part because it hurts when we do it. No, we just need to find a way to move in a quicker, easier fashion than the way that aggravates that injury further. But instead, what we're told to do is isolate and do all those things, which is good advice in some cases, right? But in a lot of cases, we have to find ways of getting to move again, right? And people are so trapped, right? Emotion, right? Latin root, to move. Literally. People don't move their body. Their emotions don't move. They become completely stagnant and stale. That river that I was talking about, how we have this river of value coming from the inside. Like our bodies are value producing machines. We can literally create other people with our bodies. Like we can create other people with our bodies. If you look at the landscape of New York, it is more defined by architecture than geology. We create all the time. Like it's so wild. But then we get into these sedentary poses, right? We get into these sedentary poses of sitting, of laying down, of getting into these places of comfort. Because why? Because we're injured in some way. I don't blame people for not moving anymore. It's just we have undealt with, unresolved injuries, a lot of times to our soul, that manifest in our bodies. And we're just in this spot where we stop moving, right? We stop moving along in our life. It's kind of like if you saw an 8th grader sitting in a 4th grade classroom, wouldn't you say, hey, that's a little weird, right? But that a lot of times that's how I've been in my life. I've been stunted. I've been that 8th grader sitting in the 4th grade class. I've been stuck in the lessons that I needed to learn in my 20s and my 30s. Like, it's cool to have potential when you're a teenager. It's even cool when you're 20. It kind of starts to really suck when you're 30. Like, don't be so, like, nobody's saying about any 30-year-old, like, oh, he's so full of potential. Like, with any sort of hope. They're just saying, oh, they're never going to use their potential. They're never going to live up to their potential. That's the story that begins to get told after your 30s, right? And so I think just learning to move and to move well and to move in ways that are sustainable. I focus so long in my workout routines in my life on intensity when that's only part of the picture. It's intensity, it's longevity, and it's flexibility, right? That's how we become people who, because you can be strong, but only strong in one position, and you can be fragile, right? And that's for me. It's like I've been very strong, but not very flexible in my life. And so as soon as I'm out of position, I get injured. What a great metaphor for other areas in my life. well, as long as my wife behaves like this, as long as my kids behave like this, as long as I get this thing in my career, I can be at my best. Well, the winds change and your sail is rigid. You're screwed. Your ship is about to sink, right? And that's what people feel. And they blame the wind, right? They blame the wind. They blame all these other things. And it's like, no, man, you just have a rigid sail. You need to learn how to become more flexible, more adaptive, more responsive, right? And the only way we can become more responsive is if we start out with responsibility, not fault, responsibility, like the ability to receive what's happening and to put it in, to receive it and to respond in appropriate measure to what's going on, respond in appropriate measure for what we want to happen next. Like when I'm not right to my wife, like I'm not thinking it through because I want a great relationship with her, right? But I've got a rigid sail at that point, right? I'm being strong, but I'm being inflexible, and therefore I'm going to break, right? I'm going to break the things that are important to me in my life. And when you break those things too many times, they just can't be put back together and expected to survive long term. And that's why we have to start thinking about longevity. And that's where my workout routines, the way that I eat, the way that I sleep now, I'm just getting more and more dialed in with that longevity piece, the flexibility piece, all those other pieces, because don't work out angry. Like, don't do it, because what happens is working out becomes a place for you to express your anger. And that's a really great way to get injured, right? And instead we just get to learn how to listen better. And that's one of the things that I love to help people do, is I love to help people move from this place of confident statements to curious questions, because that's been my journey. We would go from this, well, I can't do this, to what would need to be true in order for me to do that? Well, this person, they cause me a lot of pain. Well, what if the story is actually different than that? What if you're in a lot of pain and it was initiated by that person, but it's also an internal condition? Well, they shouldn't have said that. Well, people are going to say what they want. It's oftentimes a reflection of what they are inside and how they feel inside, not who you are or how you should feel about it. And it's like, when we become better listeners, when we learn how to tune in, what we learn how to do is to tune out a lot of those things that are pushing us closer to coping mechanisms and cures. Like, I want to dial in at this point in my life. I want to help people dial in. I want to continue to get more and more dialed into cures and coping mechanisms, right? The difference is coping mechanisms have a short-term effect. They make you feel better right now, but they cause pain in the long term. Whereas a cure actually exacerbates the symptoms. It makes the symptoms worse in the short term. How much does that suck? It's like having the hangover before you have the drink, right? And so it makes the symptoms worse in the moment because you're leaning into something, but in the long term, it makes you better and more equipped to handle it again in the future. It's actually an adaptation that we get to go through. And that's what we are. And it allows us to do the one thing that I think all free people get to do. And this is where I get so excited. Like, I love unlocking people's potential to get to this point where they can dynamically and intuitively respond in the moment. Man, like, when you get to that place where you're dynamically and intuitively responding to this moment, when you get present at the intersection of people and processes, all of a sudden you become powerful, not a way to rule, but in a way to empower others, empower the circumstances to be better, right? People think that there's this whole organized thing that's happening outside of them, when there's this whole thing that's just waiting for them to organize it. Like, if you can realize that you're the organizer of the things around you, that most people, they would love to lead, but they would like to lead, but they love to be led, right? Because that's the position that we're in. Why? Because our heart loves to serve. Our heart loves to serve, and our mind is afraid of stepping out alone. And once we learn how to cure that and give people peace of mind around the fact that they'll not only be accepted, but we need them now to lead in ways that they lead, in ways that are authentic to them, in ways that are courageous, not careless, right? In ways that are childlike, not childish. That's where we get we get to be surrounded by super cool people. Like, you get a great community of people who are absolutely freed up to make mistakes and to do things well, right? To be really weak in some moments and show that weakness without being embarrassed or hurt, and for other people to be really strong in some moments in order to pick those people up. And that's where we develop these interdependent relationships that society and true community is built on, right? When you get that, you're not in this place of like, oh, I'm sorry that I have to rely on you, because you know it's only a temporary measure. It's only an interlude to the next time that somebody gets to rely on you, till you become a multiplier, till you become the next person who's setting up circumstances for other people to fail forward. Thank you all for joining our conversations. We're developing this platform for simple, profound tools and techniques that can help you get the best out of your life and, more importantly, unlock potential. You can find me across all social platforms at The Brian Delaney, and online, come visit us at thebriandelaney.com.